Hello and welcome to Jazz After Dark. How are you today? Tonight, actually. It is nighttime early for me, actually. 10:43 Eastern here in the old household studio. I was actually just talking with a neighbor. And actually, funny story, all of my neighbors on this street, there's probably, 8 this way, and then on the other side of the road, maybe 4. And they're all from New York. Well, except for the guy that would be on this side of me. It's the only guy that's not from New York. He may originally have been from New York, but he's down here in Florida for most of his life. Everybody from New York moved to my neighborhood. Anyways, hope you're enjoying. Got my Russell's Reserve here. I'll be enjoying that with you guys tonight. And it was, like I said, I was just over with the neighbors, and we got to talk about this, student debt stuff, man. They're basically telling me about their grandchild now they're older, so the grandchild is a full-grown adult, but their grandchild is needing help with figuring out their debts and stuff, and they said, well, maybe you're our guy, can you help us? And I don't know how they're going to do it. The grandchild, I think the whole family's going to have to help with the student debts here. So it's something that's been coming up a little bit more, and I had mentioned something to them that I they didn't know about, and I often take things for granted that I have in my head, and maybe you guys don't know about as well. But you know how we're not making student loan payments right now? June 30th is supposedly when that's over with. That was the last update that I got. And so that would end then. And technically within 60 days, you would start making your student loan payments again. And that's fine. I mean, for goodness sakes, like we don't have to delay this anymore. And I don't see a good reason why we would. But you really got to focus on this with people. This is actually, it's kind of like if you sell air conditions for a living, then you probably feel very passionate or strongly against a brand, or there's a certain size or a certain way to maintain it that people just don't do. And you're like, man, that's going to cost you. And you know that it's going to cost them, but the people that own the house, they don't know. It's a brand new air conditioner. What does it matter? That's how I feel about student loans. Like, I see that a lot. Now you guys know all the clients that we've corresponded with and the 89,000 emails that we've answered. This student loan thing is troublesome. And I've had clients tell me in the past, I'm just going to get older and I'm just not going to pay it. Big deal. I make the minimum payment, and it's sort of an aggressive, frustrating comment that people can make. I get it, that they're making those comments, but I had made a comment because the neighbor said, well, what if she just grows up making her minimum payments? She'll never pay it off. I'm not entirely sure. Barring an inheritance or something, it should be illegal how much debt she got there. Basic math proves to you can't pay it off. I don't know why that was allowed. But so they said, well, what happens if she just gets older, and she says, well, hey, I've got everything paid off, so I'm just going to default on this. And yeah, it'll always be there, but now I've got my money, I've got stuff paid off. Should I take my money and spend it on paying off my house and cars and, forget about the credit issues and things like that? And I was like, well, I've heard that a lot. But have you heard of the Treasury offset program? They're just going to take her Social Security. And they never heard of that. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but the Treasury offset program, which is sort of dormant right now because there's no need to ding people for defaulting on loans that can't be defaulted on because they're paused. But we actually had a client that, this was before COVID, that was in retirement and was one of the 300,000 people or whatever the number was that defaulted on their student loans. And they took at this point, now this is the definition of a default for these people, they took 15% of their Social Security. And these people were one was retired, the spouse was not retired yet, but these people were later in retirement type age. And we talk about this idea of using Social Security as that adds to your retirement plan. It stops you from having to save so much. Even if it's in a partial payment, at least you're getting something. You can rely on dollars there. I don't buy the political argument that it's just going to disappear. That's a separate video, but there's two separate buckets for Social Security. They're talking about this bucket. Anyways, so the Treasury Offset Department, this is how I learned about this years ago, was they were taking 15% of their Social Security, which I learned at that point was the max that they could take. So these guys were really coming after them. And that's sad, because if you look at as of like the latest census, which might have been before COVID, right? There's like 15% of people in that 35 to retirement age, 35 to 65, I think is the age group. Well, now you have 15% of those people that are very likely to default on student loans. And that was done by, MIT or Boston or somebody like that. This is a college that did this study. Whereas before, and I think before the census, you had like 4% of people who were very likely to default on their student loans that were in retirement. Okay, 4% is sort of, I don't want to say a rounding error, but in any risk type environment, 4% is very low. So like a bank, for example, when the bank says we're going to do commercial loans and they just crank them out. Hey, you want one, you want. Well, they've baked in more than 4% default rate. I think the lowest it's ever been is like 3.7%. So when you say that like 4% of retirees that have student loans will default, that's such a small number. I mean, you're talking maybe the 5 to 10,000 range of people. So we can live with that, or whoever has to deal with it can live with that. But now we're talking 15%, and that's in this generation. So 15% of people get to retirement, they don't have enough, or they don't have the ability or enough money to pay for their student loans if they haven't paid them off yet. They're forced to make decisions to reduce their housing size and maybe sell their house or something, I don't know. Or they can have 15% of their Social Security withheld. In addition to the fact that you may have Social Security or tax taken from your Social Security. So your payment, which is could be a decent chunk of money there, is just dwindled down like crazy. And the amount that is written off, that 15%, well, that's taxable too. So add that added tax onto it. So the bottom line is, either if you're someone that has a student loan, this is becoming a really delicate kind of thing to navigate. I hope you're in a position where you have a reasonable amount of debt that you can pay off, and it should be fine. But if you're on that sort of outer spectrum, or you've got a serious amount of debt, that's a tough one. You're going to need a lot of focus and probably a lot of kind of strategy wrapped around what you do. If you're a parent and you're still watching this, and I haven't scared you to tell your kids not to go to college. If you're a parent and your kids are taking on student loans, you might want to be more of that conversation. With my daughter, we tried something different where we said, you have nothing. You're not getting any money for college. And we didn't tell her that. We told her that, but we was going to help her. And we said, if you take out any student loans, we just want to know about it, right? So I want to make sure I can't have you running around getting a bunch of student loans and you're riddled with debt. There's Dustin, financial advisor guy. So I'm like, I just want to know about it. Don't do anything silly. Don't get credit cards and stuff that you don't need. And so we had that conversation. Now, she had full scholarships and everything, very lucky. Chose to do community college through the first part and didn't go to a state school, so she just saved a whole bunch of money. But if you're a parent, now you want to probably have that extra eyeball on your students or your kids going, you might have to take out some debt. Be the parent that says, you can't live in Florida and get an archaeology master's degree or whatever, a PhD in archaeology at a full state school, 4-year state school or further, and rack up $400,000 in debt. It doesn't add up. Like, you might have to be that person. You're not going to be, sad as it is, you're not going to be a teacher, which you don't see that too often where there's extreme amounts of debt there. But they have the ability to. Right? So we're not going to let you rack up that kind of debt because here's your projected income. This is where you stand. So if you're willing to make payments for 20 years on student loans, then this is as far as you can go. It may just be the conversation to have. And one other thing, I know this is kind of a rant, but just came to me while we were talking over there. If you're using a 529, is that really the best account to use? So we've done classes on this in the past where you've got a 529. You could use a spousal Roth IRA if you don't need it for retirement. You can contribute to that, help that with, use that to help your kids. You could use a custodial account if your child is not an adult yet, still a minor. All of this comes into play because you can gift essentially unlimited sums of money to a 529. It's like $12 million before you hit the estate tax, the 40% tax. So for most of us, we can give unlimited to a 529. There's a lot of advantages there, but you might want to look at that and say, well, is my state school's option the best option? Do I want to go out of state? Do I want to go to another state? Do I want to maybe consider just paying a tuition early or paying a part of it? Don't just blindly open one at Fidelity or whatever and start contributing to it. Really ask yourself, like, does that make sense? Is this necessary for them? And then the second thing would be, it's probably time to, and it's not really season, but it's probably time to start having discussions on the FAFSA. Like, how do we better prepare your family for what information is going to go on that? People fall for this all the time. The 529 is going to like ding us from getting any aid from FAFSA. And that's not true. Think of the 5 in 529 as 5%. 5% is what goes to the family's contribution. So it's not a bad thing to use a 529. I've heard advisors on this very platform say, you know, you're ruining things by putting money in a 529 because the government finds out about it and all this. It's like, oh, buddy, did you not just for like 10 minutes read how it works? Like, they'll actually tell you the whole formula. You can look it up. It's actually, it's downloaded on my phone, believe it or not. So that's it, really. You know, just college is not for everybody. But it is obviously worthwhile for those that need it and have a focus on what it is they want to do. If it's not too late for those of your kids that are going to college, maybe just, you know, take a little more interest in what's going on there, because after having that conversation across the street, and it's raining now, good timing. I'm not sure I have the right answer for this person, other than the family, you know, sort of leaving them as a beneficiary or something. It was very sad. I don't know really what to say about that. Nonetheless, just keep in mind the Treasury offset program is a real thing, and they operate very efficiently, surprisingly. They will take your up to 15% of your Social Security if you do default on student loans, and sadly, that's just the way things go. All right, we have a busy week this week. On Thursday, if you are one of our clients, the Wine and Wealth, I spent all weekend on this. The Wine and Wealth class is going to talk about the U.S. digital dollar. There's two distinct things. There's the Fed now, which everybody's in an uproar about. That's cute. But we're talking about the executive order that was just passed for the new dollar. Central bank digital currency is what we're going towards. And so I'm going to break down each one of those and go through what they are. Objectively, I'm not going to sit there and tell you whether I think it's good or bad. I might, but well, at least I'll go through the details. So as this becomes more of a thing, which I'm surprised it hasn't yet, you'll actually know and when people are just filling you full of drama or actually sharing really valid thoughts. So that'll be our Wine and Wealth topic this Thursday, and you guys enjoy the rest of your night and the rest of your week. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios.